Hi, this is Jeff Lesher with What's the Point? There's an old comedian's trope that tells you one story in order to tell you another story. So I'm going to do a little version of that, except it's not funny, which is to say that in my experience, people often choose to fail to understand others who they actually really understand, but they don't want to understand. So they come up with a reason that they don't. And a lot of times it is based in the language that we use. Whether they acknowledge that or not, the reason they're not understanding you is the words that you've chosen, or more importantly, what those words mean. Now, we shouldn't seek to talk over people's heads or speak in a way that doesn't in fact resonate. And it's really helpful to all parties when we define the labels that we so easily, regularly throw around without really thinking about what they do mean, what they can mean, and especially what we agree within a certain community they do mean in fact. Perhaps the single most important of these terms right now is some form of the word inclusion. How do we invite and support difference into our work and other environments so that they are positives, not negatives to the individuals who may stand out as being different in any particular moment, and not limit the opportunity and really the business imperative of being more inclusive, because it's the right thing to do and also because it's way more effective in running your business. I've referenced many times the books Dream Teams and In Defense of Troublemakers, and there are many others out there. Find them, read them, get better. Reed Hastings' Netflix book gets into it a little bit specific to their particular environment, and that's a good transition into really the abiding point here, which is that inclusion ought not be mistaken with being all things to all people. Being inclusive still thrives on the fact that we're oriented towards the same objective. What is the purpose of the organization? What is our team contributing to it? And what am I responsible for? Those things must be abidingly consistent. And the way in which we get there, wherever there is defined as being, is going to be best contingent upon bringing our whole selves to work and showing up in the unique, positively different way that we are, to see things differently, to question things differently, to prioritize things differently, to hear what others aren't hearing, to see what others may not see. It's really important. So we have to define it in that way, not all things to all people. Now, there's a term that's derisively used for certain members of our workforce and our society, and it's snowflake. And I guess the meaning in that context is they melt easily. But the traditional understanding of snowflake is that each one, I actually don't believe this is true, but that each one is different from all the others. So we should value that version of being a snowflake in the pursuit of being inclusive, which again is not being all things to all people, but is allowing people to approach the common outcomes from different perspectives and directions. We have a podcast interview coming up probably in the next couple weeks with Mike Heider, who is the Chief Diversity Officer at Korn Ferry International, a huge search and consulting organization of some renown. And Mike Heider happens to be a person of some renown and somebody that I've been fortunate to know for a long time. And one of the things that Mike, frankly, has been teaching and preaching for a long time, since long before he became part of Korn Ferry, is that what we need to do is recognize each person as the individual they are. That we're not members of groups. I mean, it's not that we aren't members of groups, but that I'm not seen as the member of a group or groups that I might otherwise be associated with, nor is he, nor is some colleague of ours who has something different about them from us and therefore falls into a neat category, versus we each bring a special blend of experience, perspective, talent, etc. And we want to tap into that in the main and recognize that we all have to be working towards common outcomes once those are committed to. language, the definition of language, the application of language. It is not a nice to have. And when it comes to inclusion, it's important, it's fundamental, it's profound that we understand that it's not about being all things to all people, but it is about being everything to the people who sign up, who opt in, who choose to be part of us and to help us be our best selves by challenging, just by being themselves, by being different, by seeing the world differently. They challenge us, they help us to be better. And ultimately, if there is a right, to be right. That sounds like a really good point to pursue. Start with clarity. Don't BS that you don't understand. If you don't understand, say you don't understand. If you're approaching it from a certain perspective, be clear about what that is. And then together, find a path forward that takes into account all the beautiful difference that we bring into the world, and without which, gosh, wouldn't it be a boring ass place? Have a great week. That is the point.